Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
We are live. For me and you, it sounds like it's a Thirsty Thursday, which I haven't had one in a little while. So before I even say anything, brother, cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valincius. I have the pleasure of having, now I probably should ask you how you say your last name, so I'm just going to fucking wing it. Matt Drago.
Drago, but that's okay because Rocky 4 is Drago, and it happens to be one of my favorite movies. Russian is Drago pronunciation, and Drago for the Sicilian, which is me.
Awesome. All right, I'll take it. Now, Matt, you're an actor, currently living in Los Angeles. I know you have a upcoming movie somewhere in Montana where you play the role as Fabian. You've done a couple different things with, looks like Disney's Counting Scars viral video. What Would Jesus Do? The Journey Continues. Ridley Scott's Prophets of Science Fiction. You're in an audio drama, which I love, called No Other Way. Like, I'm big into audiobook dramas. I love those.
They're awesome, yeah.
And they've gotten really good lately too. So we'll get into that. But I know you're into some other stuff, karate. You're a sports fan, dude. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Dude, Rob, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to drinking with you and having a good conversation.
So, I mean, let's start with the obvious one here. What's Los Angeles like right now with after all the craziness, or is it still kind of freaking out over there?
Yeah, it's been quite a month, to be perfectly honest. But as I sit in my house right now, it is pouring outside. So we are grateful for the rain right now. My wife and dog and I had to evacuate once. We were close enough to like a warning zone, and a lot of people from the East Coast specifically, because I'm originally from the East Coast too. I even had to explain it to my dad. It's like you don't think of it. It's just like these like little campfires that are like coming up here and there. Like it's the winds. It's the Santa Anas. Sometimes they'll hit 70, 80 miles an hour, and it becomes like these fire tornadoes. So I always say that there's like three parts of it. There's the winds, which are basically the fuel to the fire. And then there's essentially like what burns, which then goes into the air, which then you breathe, right? Which is a whole other issue. And then the last part of it is you don't want to be the last to evacuate, because if you're the last to evacuate, man, it can be just really dangerous, right? And then you're in your car, not in your house. So it's those three elements that make it, pretty scary. But LA is a great city, man. It really doesn't get the credit it deserves, I believe. We're LA until, because again, I'm an East Coaster. So even growing up, I was like, oh, that's like where all like the dreamers go, and like everybody's about themselves and blah, blah, blah. You see something like this happen and you realize that LA strong means LA strong. This is an old American city, and yeah, it's built on dreamers, but dreamers are fighters. Don't sleep on dreamers. I always say that to people. Dreamers are fighters, and fighters come together for each other. And it has been really beautiful to see our city, which is, again, the biggest county in the country is LA County. A lot of people don't know that. So it's a massive area. And just to have people come together to do really extraordinary things is really, really inspirational.
Yeah, hey, look, man. I don't know maybe I am a dreamer. I'm an idea guy.
Nice.
So I consider myself maybe a dreamer because a lot of times I'm trying to think up, something new, something to do, something to create. And I've been that way since I was a kid. I used to draw a lot. I was big into drawing shit. Big into Dragon Ball Z and the cartoons and stuff growing up. And it was a way for me to kind of escape, like I could, and there was nothing wrong. It's not like I was abused. I didn't have like a shitty, family or anything. It's just, I think everybody needs a little of that escape. And that's why I appreciate what you do as an actor, because you get to, I think for us as the audience, you get to see a side of you, and this is just my opinion. Maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong or right. I think a lot of the times when actors are portraying roles, even if it's a character that is evil or whatever, there's always a piece of you in that character that you kind of give to that character, and I really appreciate that because it also lets you explore the different sides of your psyche as well.
Yeah, you have to relate to your character, and if it's a character that is far off from maybe who you are in your real life, we'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum, like a psychopath, right? Which is actually what I
Yeah.
play in What Would Jesus Do? The Journey Continues, and I was actually told even after I wrapped on that the director actually came up to me and he said, Matt, I made a mistake. And I was like, what? No, I think the film came out great. What are you talking about? Like, I loved it, And he's like, no, man, we should have used you more. Like, you really brought it. And it was because that character and kind of being like a psycho bully, like just somebody that's really unhinged, gave me the freedom to dive deep into those types of people, right? And to kind of do my research and to understand like the things that are not clicking inside of them, or clicking, I guess you could say, in their minds to make them act and react that way. So there's just a lot of escape, like you said, with your drawings in Dragon Ball Z, and because I know a lot of animators, and it's art is escape, like acting is
Yeah.
escape, telling stories, whether it's with a pencil and a piece of paper, with a typewriter. Like, my wife's a writer. I say typewriter, but I got her this really cool Bluetooth like keyboard that like looks
Yeah.
like a old school typewriter. I'm saving up because I really
I
want.
loved old school typewriters, dude. I
Oh,
had one growing up.
dude, I'm saving up for, like, I want to get her like a really nice, like, like just the one that you have to like, like one that like it'll take her like 20 years to write a book someday.
I mean, there's nothing like clicking the keys. You're hearing the and it's just, I don't know, man. It's like a cool feeling until you fuck up. Until
Oh yeah.
you meant to click F and you clicked G and you're like, ah, damn it. But
So,
that's cool. That's
it's
cool.
all an escape. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think, but I think it's good for people. Whether
Yeah.
and everyone has their own coping mechanisms. But I think for me and even the audience, I mean, it also lets you into the mind of like a psychopath, what that would
Yeah.
be. And look, I love psychopath stuff because I'm not a psychopath, but it really lets you see what the crazy is. Like, we love Dexter. We watch,
Uh,
everything Dexter. Michael
I
C.
knew two
Hall.
friends of mine that are in the new Dexter right now. The prequel Dexter, including Carlo, who actually plays the big bad that basically set all of this in motion, right? Carlo Mendez, like, he's a friend. We actually, I have his manager now, and so it's a very tight knit group. But Dexter is it's such an IP, the intellectual property for that character, and I actually was on set in a little featured background role when I first came to LA. That was the last episode of the original Dexter series. And I actually got a moment where I got to act with Michael C. Hall, and there were no words to it, but essentially, and it got cut. So, like, I learned, I've learned a lot of lessons early in my career. And again, I roll with the punches now, but it was still a really, I always look at it like, what was the day like? What did that day give me? Because again, you can't concentrate on the final result. You can't concentrate on what will happen. You have to, like, embrace, like, the fact that you're there for that day. And I got this scene with Michael C. Hall, and it was really cool. I even got to be in the group picture. I'll have to dig that one up and see if I can tag you or something and show it to you. But
That's
it,
cool.
it was so cool because basically, I guess I looked enough like his older brother, that they basically had this scene where he's at the church and he's like starting to see things, right? Because he's like
Yeah.
freaking out at that point. And we had this scene, and it was just such a cool acting moment, like regardless of whether it made it in the show, where I'm walking down the street and it's almost like he's seeing his brother. So it was going to cut to me and to like his brother, and like he doesn't know what he's seeing. But it was really cool because I'm like looking, I'm looking, I'm looking. And then all of a sudden he's on the other side of the street, and I just like stare him down. And I'm just like looking
That's
squarely.
so
So we're
cool.
like locking eyes, and like we're like there's like this moment of, and then like there's that quick cut, and he's seeing just me on the street like reading my paper or something like that, and like looking up, and so it was like a really cool like little acting moment with him. And even across the street I'm like, damn, this guy is good. Like he is bringing it, because he's very soft spoken, but intense. And it's fun when you get those roles that are so unlike you to essentially like just dive deep into what makes those types of people click, because it's showing another side of humanity. And so that's what makes the journey ever fun as an actor.
The wifey, she loves what's his name? Patrick Gibson, the guy that plays him as a young kid in the new original Sin.
Yep,
He's really good.
he's
He
good.
brings
He did his homework for sure.
he brings Dexter very, very well. I don't know about the casting for his sister. Like she plays her really well. It's like she's not doing a bad job, but it's just Deb was a weird character for the whole series. So I feel like it's hard to replicate her. I thought it was going to be hard to replicate Dexter, but he just nails it. And of course, Christian Slater's Christian Slater. He's fucking great. But it's been cool, and we're excited to see the new show. But that's pretty wild that some people, in it, and you've worked with him. That's cool. We
Dude,
love that
just
guy,
being,
man.
yeah, just being on set that day, knowing, because the emotions were high. Because you have to remember, I mean, like when you are living in that world, the original Dexter show, what was it, like seven, 8 seasons, something like that?
There's a lot of
It
seasons.
was a lot
Yeah.
of seasons. And so, like, because it was literally one of the last days, I mean, it definitely was the last episode, but it was one of the last days of shooting where I happened to, get to act with Michael C. Hall. You could tell, like, there was a lot of like sadness, like, like it was definitely like, coming to an end. And that's why they did that group picture, because, it was one of the last times that they were all together, because it was a big day. So there were a lot of people there. Because I mean, sometimes you have maybe a scene with just Michael C. Hall and Jennifer Carpenter, David Zayas or whatever. So this one was such a big day, in terms of location, that everybody was there, and I just happened as an extra with a little featured part to get into this picture, and I'm like, right there with like people that really I admire. But it was just really cool because a lot of people that day were really reflecting on what the journey meant to them. And I think that really spoke to me as an actor, because it really is. And I say this all the time, but it's true. It's no bullshit. Like the journey is the destination. Like you have to embrace the journey, because you'll have little days like that, and then maybe your scene will be cut. But like I got to act with Michael C. Hall. I got to be on set with a bunch of great actors in one of the most iconic shows of all time, and I happened to be there like the last episode. So, sometimes you take your wins, like, in the ways that you don't think you will. And I think if you have that humility, it goes a long way in this industry.
Oh yeah, I mean that's something. Who cares if like that you were there, and you were in those photos, and I mean, I looked it up, so it was 8 seasons. I mean, I can imagine
Yeah.
all the planning that went into the first season alone, and then so you're talking over 8 years, of people being together all the time. So, and I know he was a writer on the show as well, right? Did he create it, or was he a co-creator?
No, Clyde Phillips is the creator, but he got,
Okay.
producer credit as he became, just really iconic in the role. And I mean, it's the same thing with the prequel. I mean, like they had to get his voice in there. Like they had to get like
Oh
his dialogue, because I mean, he's just like it's listen, it's really hard sometimes when you find a role that like connects with you, or that you connect with on such a deep level, and people see that, to break away from it. I think when he was in 6 Feet Under, I think that was a role that was similar. But Dexter, like, just, I mean, it's one of the most perfect casting choices of all time, in my opinion. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that role done any other way. And I think that, that's something that you actually try to do as an actor. And it's something that I'm starting to wrap my head around a little bit more, is that the roles that are meant to find you will find you. And talking about Somewhere in Montana, I feel the exact same way about Fabian Verdugo. And you don't even know it in the moment, but sometimes you realize it over time, like, wow, like I really understand this character, and I see what this character has done for me and in my life. And I just, hopefully other people see it that way too. But it is pretty cool when you realize, like, oh wow, like this role actually was meant to find me in some way.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is something that for me, I think I was always intrigued with, because you get, I think, two different sides to it, right? How do you feel about that syndicated show, right? What's it, 4 seasons and then it's syndicated?
Used to be
Is that
five. Yeah, it used to be
is it
five,
5? Okay.
but it's changed so much with streaming, dude. It's so different now.
How do you feel about, getting into, like obviously people see Michael C. Hall, they see Dexter.
Mhm.
Now, I guess that's called, I guess, what, typecasting, right? You see Daniel Radcliffe, you think Harry Potter. And I know that he's done everything he can to distance himself and be in other crazy roles and way different things. But how do you feel as an actor about things like that, roles like iconic roles? Because I know you get some people that just want to say, nah, fuck it, I don't want to be involved in that, I want to go the other way. But then you have some people that like tend to just, like, I think Michael C. Hall embraced it, and he's like, this is who I am, I love this show, and let's do as many seasons or as many different variations of the show as possible. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll give you an interesting one. So, I
Okay.
studied with the great Sam Christensen, and he passed away a couple years ago, but he was extraordinary in New York City, and he really gravitated towards me, and me to him as well, because of what he taught, and I think he could tell that I was really searching for something. So, what he taught kind of surpassed acting. I mean, it correlated with acting. I was actually studying with his friend Terry Schreiber in his studio at the same time. And Terry got, Edward Norton his start, and he became like a grandfather to me and a great acting teacher. But he'd bring in different people like Sam to kind of fill in the gaps and teach different aspects of acting. And what Sam did as the casting director of MASH, I mean, he had this extraordinary memory. I mean, some of these casting directors, dude, like they like see, and MASH actually had a lot of guest stars, like a lot of parts coming in and out. And so he'd go to off Broadway, off Broadway. He was talking about, like, he like used to scout people at the Public Theater downtown in New York City. And just remember, oh, that's the guy that does that, you know what I mean? Or has this type of energy, or da 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 da. And so because he like studied that from a casting director standpoint for so many years in casting MASH. And again, you can look that one up, but I think that show was on like almost 2 decades, right? So,
Yeah, long time.
a long time. And so because that shaped him, he was like, okay, what is it that I'm seeing here, right? Because he's seeing all these different actors that are giving off all of these different things. And so he came up with the word. The word is that it's the character's myth, or the actor's myth. And the myth is essentially what they're giving off that they don't even have control of. As you're talking to me right now, you're probably getting vibes from me as a person, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's like, if you were a casting director, like, how would you see me? Like, would you see me in that role? No, not so much, but you might see me in that one. Or I would like to try him in that role, but I'm not really sure about it. If he's not right for that, maybe I'll try him over here. And that's what Sam did. Sam brought in so many different people over so many years that he essentially created this whole idea around it, which was the actor's myth. And my myth, I'll just tell you on the show, is essentially what he called it was the gift of returns. He said that my character is, or my myth as a person, because again, the actor myth and the person are one and the same, and that's another thing. It's like
Yeah.
you can't hide what you give off. Like, it's just the way that you are viewed sometimes. And that's the same in regular life too. So it actually kind of helps you as an actor, but it also helps you as an artist too, because some people come across arrogant, some people come across really sweet, some people come across, like whatever, right? And so it essentially gives you the freedom to say, okay, this is how people are viewing me, and I can either embrace it or I can reject it. And rejecting it's always the wrong way to go because, again, you want to be a working actor, so you want to embrace how you're viewed and how you're seen. So my myth is the gift of returns. The gift of returns meaning that I give a lot. Like I give like a lot of energy, I give a lot of passion. I'm Sicilian, so I talk with my hands, which I have to try not to do when I'm on
Same,
set because you know what
same
I mean?
here. Same
Right? So we can't
here.
help it.
Same
It's
here.
like
Yeah.
So it's like this gift of returns and what he said to me, because I mean I was having trouble with it. A lot of times, like a lot of people said that I did read as arrogant, and I was upset about that because I'm like, no, Sam, like I'm not arrogant. Like I'm a student of the game. Like I love like being around actors and he said, no, Matt, you're missing the point. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not telling you that you're arrogant. I'm telling you that that's how sometimes you come across. It's not a bad thing because arrogance, if we look at that word, maybe we don't really understand what the full word means, right? Obviously
Yeah.
arrogant means something, but you need to reshape that. It's not who you are, it's how you come across. So lean into it. What is arrogance? It could be pride. It could be, like hubris, right? It could be a lot
Yeah.
of the roles that we see in shows over and over again, like CW, the boyfriend with the heart of gold. Well, he's cocky as shit, but
Yeah.
he's probably gonna have a moment where he gets it, or it's probably when he gets the girl too, where he is a little bit softer, right? So it's this incredible program that I worked with him, and he actually said that one of those myths is somebody that he actually knew personally in when he was alive was Tom Cruise, and he said that that was his myth too, and that's what he gave off. That just kind of gift of returns, like he gives so much, and like as a person, but
I could see that.
that's how he rubs off too. So he told me that because he wanted me to understand that success was there, but it was at a point in my life where I was kind of rejecting who I was in a way, or not embracing how I was being seen. And it really unlocked the door for me to be okay with being more passionate, which again sometimes gets classified as being selfish or self-centered, or being a diva, right? Or whatever it is. And so again,
Yeah.
it really got me to the point where I'm like, yeah, I am passionate. I'm an Italian guy, I'm proud. Yeah, like that's okay. And if that's the way that I'm seen, then instead of backing away from it, maybe I need to lean into it and see what happens. And then roles like Fabian Verdugo come along, right? And Fabian is an LA filmmaker. He's passionate about his art. He will fight tooth and nail for his dreams, but he also is somebody that'll go down with his own ship. He's somebody that takes care of his family. His cast and crew are his family. He will fight for them. And so, like, when I think about like that moment in time where I studied with Sam Christensen, like what a gift he gave me, because he gave me the freedom to be what I was being viewed as. And so, I think when I think about actors, it's in that same way. It's like Michael C. Hall is a cool guy. Like he's so cool, right? He's like so down to earth,
Yeah.
and like a total team player, and very chill. And he plays one of, if not, I think the best psycho killer of all time. So there you go.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it's that myth that goes along with acting that I feel like really opened the doors for me in my creative journey and my acting career.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I never really thought of it like that, where you kind of lean into I guess your main personality trait, or your something that you don't even realize that you're giving off. And there's so many different shows and movies and stuff now that I feel like it doesn't matter how you are, but if you can portray the role or portray those traits, and that's what they're looking for, you have a good shot at getting the role, right? I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, there's also still a lot of people that are acting. I'm sure there's it's not necessarily a field where there's too few of, like nurses or something. But let's talk a little bit about growing up, man. I want to know,
Well, one
you
thing I
know,
wanted to tell me,
yeah,
I want to go into that, but there's one misnomer where like you don't want to be typecast as an actor, right? But
yeah,
I actually think that as I got into LA specifically, it's not all bad to be typecast because if you are that person that does that very specific thing, you'll work over and over again being that type of character. And honestly, if it's a kind of character that you really enjoy playing, then that's really fun too. Yes, it's fun to flip the switch. It's fun to see if you can. And actually, Brandon Smith from somewhere in Montana wrote me a completely different character for his next film coming out, which I think is so cool that he sees my range, even though I play a very passionate director. He kind of wants me to be like a cold, hearted bad guy in the next one. I'm like, yes, because it was like, you might not like this, and it's like, but you're gonna play the bad guy in my next movie. I'm like, are you kidding me? Fuck yeah, sign me up. You know what I mean? Like that sounds so fun.
that
So
is
I,
awesome.
I I just wanted to do a tag on that one before we go into the backstory because I really do. I think. Sometimes when you get typecast, especially in film and TV, that medium specifically, because it's so close, it's so intimate with the shot and things like that. It can really open up some doors for you as an actor because you realize, like, again, what your myth is because that's how people are seeing you and that's how they want to see you. And you achieve greater when you're just leaning in on how you're being viewed and how you're being seen as an actor.
I will tell you this. One of my favorite things, I love reading. So I do a lot of audiobooks now because I drive a lot. It's like I have a 2-hour drive, basically, an hour to work, hour home. I love anti-hero books.
Yeah,
I just eat it up. I love books about the big bad guy, but you learn the backstory of why that guy is bad. And then
right.
you start to sympathize, like, oh shit, like this guy just had a really fucked up. Now, obviously, it doesn't correct the stuff that they do as the bad guy, but it changes your psyche of thinking. And for me, it's the same thing with like the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has bad days, and you might run into someone that's having a bad day, and they flip you off for no fucking reason, or they cut you off. And for me, it's learning to recognize that in real life. Sometimes it's hard because you're like, fuck you too, buddy,
Yeah.
But it kind of teaches you to also empathize, I think, and recognize those things. Like maybe that guy just had or that lady had a really shitty day,
Sure.
and I need to let it go, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I just love that anti-hero backstory. I love it.
Me too. It's my favorite. I mean, I think in many ways in real life, like a lot of heroes, obviously, like we're not all perfect, right? And so, like, there's always going to be parts of us that, I think it's beautiful to show people's imperfections, right? So the anti-hero for me, is a sweet spot that I'd love to live in for a long time because in many ways, we are protagonists and antagonists of our own stories, right? We
Yeah.
have, even if we're good people, we have bad moments. We're all humans. So, yeah, the anti-hero definitely speaks to me too.
But that's cool that you're going to get to play the bad guy, so you'll be able to kind of implement your own little backstory to it. That'll
100%.
be interesting to see how you kind of navigate through that.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah.
But yeah, talk about growing up, man. Like, tell me a little bit about. I know you're from the East, the East Coast. Talk about a little bit of, about your early days, and then what got you into acting. I know everyone kind of has I don't want to say an origin story, but what got you there, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to L.A., man. I've interviewed a couple actors, and they always have that moment where they're like, fuck it, I'm going to L.A. And they go to L.A.
Yeah, no, it is for me. Humble beginnings. I grew up in rural Virginia. Mom and dad divorced when I was 4. Mom remarried. My best friend, my Papa Chaz, my stepfather, he passed away a couple years ago. I miss him, but he taught me a lot about
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It was something that his relationship for me taught me how to love acting. Because I knew from a young kid like that I knew I loved creating and stories and he loved food. He was a chef. And so he worked at the original Marriott in Hume, Virginia, Marriott Ranch. He used to serve the Marriott's Thanksgiving dinner. And what I
Wow.
loved so much about him and just valued from his passion in food, because we used to talk what's called food porn together, and it was just like it was so fun to hear him talk about food. Like he literally make you salivate talking about anything about food. But it's because he could make
We watch a
any.
lot of Food Network. A
Food
lot of the
Network.
Food Network.
It's
We love
food.
it.
Yes,
Love it.
it's incredible. But what he did specifically, like in his food practice, because I mean, he'd be a shotgun chef. He would go in and work at an Indian restaurant or work in fine dining or a French cuisine restaurant, or like I mean, he had so many jobs in his career, that he always talked about like bringing food to everybody. And that was always something that really resonated with me. Is he was like, son, I could make this dish and I could make it 9.99 or I could make it 99.99. You know what I mean? Same exact dish, different ingredients, obviously, but you build the flavors, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And like, so he really made food for everybody. And, hearing him talk about food really resonated with me growing up, because I saw that passion in him, and he was such, he was just, my closest friend, that I, just gleaned so much from his passion and put it into my acting. And so for me, it was, getting on stages. We didn't really have TV and film in rural Virginia growing up. So local theater, I probably did like 15 or 20 shows in the local theaters. And then my first paying gig was actually dinner theater, which I got to tell you, Rob, is a humbling job, right? And it was like one of my first jobs. And what's so cool about it is, because I did 3 shows at Riverside Dinner Theater. I played Mowgli and Jungle Book and Hansel and Gretel, and then Little Patrick and Mame. Is, you're on stage, you're doing the show, and then you're serving tables and clearing plates and refilling drinks. And I think it taught me from a
Wow.
really, yeah, it taught me from a really young age, like 14 or 15 years old, that like this dream was going to be work. Like if I wasn't willing to work for it, then I shouldn't do it. And I think that's really kind of what gravitated me towards New York City, because I was like, I don't mind the work. I don't mind sacrificing. I'm a fighter. Like I grew up on the Rocky movies, so like I was like, I don't care. Like count me the fuck out. Like I'll show up. I don't care. Like go for
Yeah.
it. Like that will fire me up.
It's the Philly attitude, man. That's the
Hey
Philly
man,
attitude right there.
it's a lot of sports attitudes. You know what I mean? It's
Oh
even
yeah.
like it's a dynamic nature. Even in this Super Bowl, and listen, like I I'm a Chiefs fan and a Rams fan. So it was
All
heartbreaking for
right.
me to see that the Chiefs didn't show up. I mean, they showed up 3 years ago in the first one, and that was a great game. It sucks to get to that point and to have it not be a good game, but like kudos
Yeah.
to the Eagles. Their front four beat our front four. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And anybody that knows football, now see, this is why we're gonna go on a tangent all day, brother. This is what's gonna happen. Like you know what I mean? I don't even know what the question was anymore, but we'll get back maybe to another tangent. But like the front
We'll get
four,
there.
I mean, the trenches, right? It's anybody that knows football knows that it's won or lost in the trenches. And listen, I think what because I did see that you posted something about the Chiefs on your Instagram, and I always focus
Yeah.
on and maybe it's just from an emotional standpoint, how you win or how you lose, because I root for
Yeah.
franchises, and some of the Eagles, I gotta be honest, like C.J. Gardner Johnson, not cool.
No, he's a talker.
Nick Sirianni saying "fuck the Chiefs," going like out of like no, like you don't kick a man while he's down. You don't do that in life, and you don't
Yeah.
do that in sports. Listen, the Chiefs have won 3 out of 5 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. The only time that they weren't there was when my Rams won against the Bengals, right? So I've had 7 straight years of having one of my 2 teams in the Super Bowl, which I got to be honest. Everybody says like sometimes like it's crazy to have 2 teams. Well, one's in the AFC, one's in the NFC, and you got to remember these used to be 2 different leagues. So for me, it gives
Yeah.
me 2 teams to root for, but I root for the franchises. I root for the fact that the Chiefs, I feel like, never do that. I mean, remember 3 years ago when Mahomes was at the podium and they won the game against the Eagles, and one of the first things he said, I don't want people to forget about like what a great game Jalen Hurts just had, because he was the MVP. I thought that they were going to give Jalen Hurts the MVP in that game. I thought they should have,
Yeah.
frankly. because that performance was mind blowing, right? And
Four
again,
total touchdowns. Yeah, he
four
balled out,
total.
man.
And he balled out this time too. He listen. I love Saquon. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for any champion that acts like a champion, but you have to do it whether you win or lose the game. Because I think like the press conferences from Mahomes and from Andy Reid, and it's like you understand that mentality. You don't kick a man while he's down. You don't go after his ex-girlfriend. And
Yeah,
now the fact that he's got like personal issues, we'll just say, like, doesn't surprise me,
yeah,
because that's like, so again, like, I root for people, I root for franchises, based on character. And I think that is one thing I always say. Like the Eagles, listen, they can listen. You should be happy that you won the Super Bowl, because
yeah.
you won it. I mean, like, there wasn't a bad call, and even Kyle Brandt says, because I'm a GFB like fanatic, right? Maurice Jones-Drew just started following me. Like I love like football's my escape, dude. So like I don't know
Yeah.
how much time you have, but this is the first tangent.
I love football.
You got me drinking, Rob. So this is your fault. um, but it's just one of those things where it's like you really do hone in on just the mentality of some of these players, and that's what you fall in love with. Like, I fell in love with the Rams this year because they were a team of new talent, Les Snead, masterclass in drafting, getting Braden Fisk and Jared Verse back together. I mean, you talk about that moment where two full grown men are being like, bro, we're going to play together again. Like, and they're both crying. Like, that is culture. That is what culture looks like in a team. So I always challenge the winners to be winners and to be champions, and for their fan base to be humble, because the reality
Yeah.
is, I mean, if you want me to fight back on that, well, Mahomes has more Super Bowl wins than the Eagles franchise. Okay.
He does.
So if you want me to be a jerk about it, like, I could just say that, but I don't want to say stuff like that, because it's not fair to what the Eagles just achieved. I just want champions to act like that, and I want the fan bases to act like that, because winning is not easy, dude. Getting to the Super Bowl is not easy. Having a 17 game season is not easy, and so I really do. I think that we all need to take a breath around sports, because sometimes we take it too personal. I watched New Heights. I watched Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey. I love those two guys because, like, they cry and they get emotional. And I think that we need that right now. We need to find the way to be in touch with, like, our softer side, especially as men. Like, that is important. And that's actually a great segue, if you want to, into my character on Fabian Verdugo. But you lead the way. I'm rambling.
Well, here's what I'll say. Here's the only rebuttal I have with, I think this goes with Gardner Johnson, which I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he said, because he's talked when we didn't re-sign him in 22. He talked shit on us. I love him because he throws his body on the line. I will say that, but he does have a mouth.
Yeah.
I will say some of this might be from when Juju Smith-Schuster was talking all that shit on Valentine's Day, and he posted, I want to say it was a meme about Brad, what the fuck's the guy that held in the Super Bowl? Was it Brad, why can't I think of it? Eagles, James Bradbury. I don't know why I can't think of it.
Yeah.
He's who held Juju Smith. Well, he posted like a meme, and it was like, I want to hold you tonight or something, and it was like, and I hate Juju Smith-Schuster because of that. Like, I didn't mind him before, but I fucking hate his guts. And watching him lose made me feel good. Now, I will say this: Philadelphia, we're passionate about a lot of stuff, and I think sometimes that passion turns into malice to a certain degree for some people.
Yeah.
And I will say Nick has gone above and beyond, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But outside of those two, other than that, I think we were pretty good outside of that. Like, our offensive line is just a bunch of big dudes that love each other.
Yeah.
I will say Kelsey was crying on 94 WIP today. They made him cry because he was talking about that struggle because he loves the Eagles and his friends are here, but also seeing his brother, who's a future Hall of Famer, have a bad game and lose. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So I think for him, it was a difficult struggle to who he's going to root for and how he cares. And I think I didn't see the episode today, but there was a clip of the podcast, and he's like, dude, you got to understand, like, you helped build that, like, you deserve to, you kind of implemented a lot of those things. And he's like, no, I don't want credit for any of that. Kelsey was like, those guys did this all on their own. And Travis was like, no, like, you showed, like, people talk about you still hurts, still talks about you. Like, you helped create that room, and he was trying to give him credit for it. So I'm excited to see or listen to that podcast because I think I'm a little drawn out on the Kelseys right now because they're just like fucking everywhere. But I like that behind the scenes and look at football and the real stuff, the stuff that they're talking about. I actually just missed it, or tonight I think at 8:00 they're going to show the the mic'd up Super Bowl side of the Eagles. I don't know if you saw this, but Jordan Mailata, he's our left tackle.
Yeah.
He, during the Commanders game, quoted Bane from Batman, and it's like probably my favorite moment of the whole season because he's like, we were up pretty decent in that game too, but he said, I was wondering what would break first, your body or your spirit. And I was like, I fucking love this guy. I don't buy jerseys often. I want to go out and buy his jersey just from that.
Yeah.
He's a big man, dude. He's 6'7".
He's insane. And isn't he the first? Is he the first? Where's he from again? He's the first
Australia.
He's the first Australian to win a Super Bowl, right? Or something. He's the first. He's the first to win a Super Bowl. I just saw that.
He played rugby. Like,
maybe he's the first.
Maybe
he's the first rugby player to win a Super Bowl. It's something like that. Yeah.
Howie Roseman drafted him in the 7th round.
Jeez.
And I owe a lot of. I think we owe a lot of the success of our franchise from Howie Roseman. The draft that he did, and I will say this: he's been awful at drafting. Like, in 2011, 12, 13, like, he had some pretty shitty drafts. Mm-hmm. It's, he just wasn't hitting. But the past couple years, man, he's just
Carson
been
Wentz,
on
man.
point.
When you got those picks from Carson Wentz, I mean, that got you AJ, it got you Devonta, it got you. Did it
Carter?
I think it got you Carter, and I think it got you
Milton Williams, I think, maybe.
Was it Quinyon? Did it get you Quinyon or
I think it was Milton because he was a third round pick, but
okay.
I mean, they were all insane. They all had
hit. You
massive
just,
impact.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing that I'll say is I listen, because I grew up playing sports, and we're gonna talk shit. We're guys, like yes. it's like we can't help it. You know what I mean? Like whatever. But I do think that you have to never take it too far. And that's what I'll say. Like you wouldn't see Andy Reid walk off the field in the Super Bowl saying "fuck the Eagles." And even the holding thing with Juju is one thing. Attacking somebody's by bringing up like their ex-girlfriend like after the Super Bowl is a little bit dark. So what I'm saying is, like, never take it too dark. I love seeing too much of the Kelseys because of what they stand for and what they represent, which I think is male strength in vulnerability. And I think if we can be more vulnerable, we don't fall into the trap of becoming dark to each other. And we're in dark times right now in our country. And so those things can get out of hand quickly, where, if you're talking shit, like, bro, I just like, you know what I mean? Dude, did you, don't even stand up, just stay down. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. Like that's going to happen on the field of play. Like, you see that you're talking about the mic'd up version. Like, I'm going to watch that too. And I love that shit. Like, I'm not going to say that I don't, but like, just keep it, like, the best way that I can say it, cause it's not professional to do smack talk. Like, it's not like, I'm a professional smack talker. It's that don't make it dark. Don't make it about something that it's not. Don't boo Taylor Swift because she's rooting for her, soon to be husband and she loves Travis. Like don't boo her. That to me is a little bit like you're kind of like missing the point because again, and I'm a Swiftie, so like I'll be honest about that. But regardless of whether you like her music, I mean, what she stands for and what she gives back to people. I mean, she was paying like bonuses of $100,000 to the people that were like driving the stage around the country and the world. She does charity work all the time, and if you've ever been to one of her concerts, and maybe you haven't, it is like this perfect kumbaya thing where like people are handing out friendship bracelets and everybody's together and they're emotional. And as an actor and as a person, I think that we are always in the best place when we are feeling positive emotions. And I think if we can keep feeling those positive emotions, it's less likely that we'll fall into the darkness or the trap of being too critical and being too cruel in the moment, especially when you've just won the Super Bowl. Because at that point, you should be like popping every bottle of whatever the fuck you can find in your locker room and downing it and
Yeah.
and partying. You shouldn't even be worried about the other team at that point. You should be, concerned about like this party probably won't end until like 8 a.m. and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to leave it on the field, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Have the champions mentality. Unfortunately, I know Philly gets a bad rap, and but it's always like one or two bad eggs, and that's like the throwing snowballs at Santa was probably
But you know
three
what?
people or
It's
like
you know what? Here's what I'll say. It always starts at the top though sometimes. Like the culture is usually built from the top down. It's the same way in acting, by the way. If you've got a director that is like literally creating an ecosystem of negativity and like that's going to channel right through your actors, your crew. Nobody's going to want to be there. Nobody's really going to be as together as a unit to tell a great story together. I just like you would never see Sean McVay go after the Super Bowl and be like, fuck the Chiefs. I know that guy. He wouldn't
yeah,
do that. He has so much respect.
yeah.
So, respect, to go with the film that I'm in is one of the key ingredients in this film because, I play a Los Angeles director and Graham McTavish plays, a Montana rancher, and we work through that as men. We have conversations actually like we're having right now. And the reality is that I've always found this to be true is that respect is the highest form of love you can give another person. And the thing is, you're never going to agree on anything, right? Or everything. You're never going to agree on everything. But if you can really like see the person as a person, and you can understand where they're coming from, and respect them in a way where you're not being cruel or giving into the darkness, like then I feel like there's that path forward, and that's a big through line in this film that I'm in.
So yeah, let's talk about that film.
Yeah.
It's called Somewhere in Montana. You play Fabian, right? For one, I got to ask you, where was it filmed? Like in Montana?
Whole thing was shot in Polson, Montana.
That is so cool. We joke. There's a buddy of mine we work with, and he's like, if I ever get some money, I'm just buying a ranch. I'm going to Montana, and that's just what I'm doing. And what's the show Yellowstone?
Yep.
We watched a lot of that, and we haven't watched the rest of the new season. I don't know, it just kind of got weird, but it's a great show. What was it like shooting it? Playing him and being out in Montana. That had to be pretty cool.
Rob, it was incredible. I mean, honestly, like I always say, like this, like I've already won with this film because of what an impact it made, not only on me as an artist, but as a person. Shooting in Montana is an artist paradise. It's God's wallpaper, right? And you're just kind of like constantly just invigorated by just the beauty of Montana. We shot the whole thing there. We really used the town, and I think what was so special about it was everybody was part of it. We go to like Graham and I would have like our little breakfasts at Betty's Diners. We'd go get our bison steaks at the Shoe restaurant. We couldn't get enough of each other. And again, we talk about like that ecosystem. Brandon Smith like created such an ecosystem for everybody on set where we really could not get enough of each other. I mean, like whether we were, like going on a hike or just having really great conversations together. And I really feel like you feel that in this film. And I feel like it's so important to feel that in this film because Graham and I, for example, we have a 10-page scene that's just the two of us. And it's two guys having a conversation just like we are right now. And it goes into all of the hot button topics. I mean, we're talking about religion, we're talking about gender equality, we're talking about politics, we're talking about all the things that you would expect from a conversation between two opposing worlds. But it's at a place in the story where we start to see each other and we start to understand each other. And for me, this process of even being up in Montana and being around these people really fueled my ability to tell this story. Because, and I'll tell you a quick story about the moment where I just fully understood the power of this story and just what this story was about. I was so we shot on an active cattle ranch in Polson, Montana. And when I say like an active cattle ranch, okay? And it was about 45 minutes away from like the town. And when your friend buys a ranch, I mean like you better know which way is right and left because if you take a right, you're going to be 15 miles down the road in the wrong direction. I mean, it's like there's no way I would ever be able to find this ranch unless I was driven there. Like it's in the middle of
Wow.
nowhere, but it's so beautiful, dude. It's so beautiful. So
I would love the scenery. I mean, I'm in this. I'm outside the city, but it's city living. It's you don't get to see, the cool wildlife and the trees and the hills, and you just don't see that shit here unless you're like drive an hour towards like, the Amish country.
yeah, and Brandon used all of it too. That was what was so cool. Like he would use, the lake, he would use the ranch, he would use the barber shop, he would use the local bar. Like he used so much of it to pay homage. And that was one thing that we heard for a lot of feedback from the town was how important it was for them to shine a light on their little corner of the world, which I think is a big problem with what we're having in our society right now is people feel like they don't have a voice and they don't feel like they're being seen or heard. And so I feel like good art can do that. And I feel like this story definitely does that. So back to this picture, it's actually on my Instagram and it's just a, like off-screen picture of just four people, but it really was a moment that resonated with me because it made me understand the full impact of this story. So the picture is of Brandon Smith, the writer-director, me playing the director, so the two directors, Graham playing the Montana rancher, and David, who actually owned the cattle ranch that we shot on. And, Montana, a lot of the people up there, yeah, they're maybe different than me. Maybe they, maybe they have differences, but just getting to be a part of that 6 weeks and becoming such close friends with so many people up there and starting to understand their lifestyle and really starting to develop a true love for them. As a small little town, as so many people that like work with their hands and, just want to kind of enjoy their life was really captivating for me. And I remember one day on set, we're at the cattle ranch and I looked at David, the owner of the actual cattle ranch, and he knew, Rob, exactly what I was saying when I said it. I just asked him one simple question. And I said, David, how do you do this? Because I've been eating steak my whole life and he knew exactly what I meant. I said, how do you do this? And he looked up at the sun in this moment. You have to understand that people in Montana, I mean, they're very succinct, 23 today. Yep. All right. Dinner at 6. Yep. I'll see you there. It's very quick, right? Like conversations.
Yeah.
And I said, how do you do this? And it was the first time and the only time I ever saw him get emotional, Rob. He looked up at the sun and he said, oh, it's still hard. And it was that moment that I was like, oh, wow, we need each other. Like, despite our differences, despite what we may disagree on, this or that, like, there is more that could connect us than could ever divide us, but we have to let each other in. That's the secret sauce. We have to let each other in because I need him. I can't do what he does. And maybe he can't do what I do, right? But it's like we need each
Yeah.
other, right? Maybe he needs me for that story to let him escape. We were talking about escape earlier with your Dragon Ball Z, right? It's like it's finding ways to escape, but that's beautiful, right? I mean, like I have animators and they like literally like just when they feel like they're flustered, like they go and they just draw something. That's beautiful. I love that. You're talking to an
Little
artist
kid
right now.
me, little
Hey,
kid me. Now this is my escape is
hey,
drinking and talking to people.
it's a great escape though, right? Because we're having a great
Yeah.
conversation. We're going all over the place as I knew we would, right? Which I love, right? We're both drinking. I mean, this is like us hanging out at the bar, but having a good conversation. These conversations
It's
matter.
organic.
It's organic.
It's organic and it's not fake. And I think for me, authenticity is tough, and I'd imagine you would agree with the world we live in, right? With
Yeah.
acting, social media. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in your shoes because you have a lot of actor friends, right? To a certain degree. So,
Mhm.
I'd imagine you have to like sort through things to. I don't know. I don't have actor friends, so I guess I can't relate what it's like to have actor friends, but. The social media side of it, I think, is rough because you just see all these smiling people, and that's just not the world we live in.
Well,
You're not
and that
happy 24/7.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great point, Rob. It's like the reality is you are very outward facing as an actor. People see the red carpets, they see the awards. I gotta be honest, like most actors don't like that's not why they got into acting. Like if you told me like, my wife and I can go to an awards ceremony and it's a cool event and there's an open bar, of course, like that's great, and there's
Oh
going to
yeah,
be award
you have me at
like
open bar.
like you know what I mean? Right, exactly. It's like obviously like we're going to have fun going to that, but it's about telling stories. It's about trying to make an impact with stories. It's about telling human stories, right? Which is a whole other topic about AI, right? It's like you need to make sure that human stories are being told exclusively by humans. Like that is important right now. And there is a lot of misinformation on social media and we are outward facing. And this is why I do podcasts. Like this is why I love having candid conversations with you because then you get to understand me not just from a snapshot on a social media site or one line over here, one line. You get the full painted picture of who I am, right? And so it's a little bit more nuanced because I do think that, in having so many actor friends, actors are some of the most selfless people I've ever met in my life. Like they really are. They hold space for you. And then you meet people like Graham McTavish, who's the first person that called me mate. I've never been called mate before, which is a Scottish, sign of camaraderie, and it was just so cool because after we wrapped, it's the last thing that he said to me as he was getting into his car. He looked at me and again, it was a sign of, hey, we told a good story together. You know what I mean? Like it meant something to him. It meant a lot to me too. We both knew that. And he looked at me before he got in the car and he said, I'll see you, mate. And it meant the world to me because it was like we became more than just two actors on set together. We became friends. We became two people that knew that we were telling a very big story. And we had a lot of the conversations off screen that interpreted what we did on screen. Because that 10-page scene, Rob, I got to be honest, it is a masterpiece. It is why I fell in love with this story because that scene in and of itself is exactly what we need to see right now is two different alpha men, that are kind of at each other's throats in the beginning that are from two different worlds. And again, Brandon writes this really interesting dynamic that is very rare in that we are protagonists and antagonists of our own stories. And so there's no good guy, bad guy. We're both alphas. We both want things. We're both fighting against the clock, and we have to come to this understanding. And this 10-page scene really does just such a dynamic way of doing that because it really does hit at all the bullet points. But it's about listening. And Graham and I had some really awesome conversations about the scene because we didn't want it to feel too precious. We didn't want to fall into any of the actor traps that you can fall into. We wanted it to be organic, authentic and real, and that was a key element that we said, nope, we're not going to fall into those traps. We're not going to get too big with it. Like this is about listening. This is about listening. And so we really bonded through that. And there's nothing like bonding through sharing a good story like we're doing right now, so that's why I
Yeah.
love acting.
What was it like? What was it like working with Michelle Hurd? I know she was in that. So I only know her because we're obsessed with Law and Order SVU. We could tell you episodes just from the first 5 seconds of the show. Big fan of our SVU people, but I know she was in SVU. What was it like working with her?
Michelle is like a big sister to me now. I mean, I got to be honest. We were hanging out at Palm Springs screening about a week and a half ago, and I mean, her and her husband Garrett Dillahunt. I can't say enough about them. They're such a power couple. But you realize why people are pros and have such an incredible career and duration, and it's because they really do. They hold so much space for people. I mean, she is fire. Like she is fiery and very quickly because interestingly enough, as the dynamic goes, she plays my producer and I'm the director, and that is sort of a brother relationship. Brother sister relationship in real life is the producer a lot of times is the one that like tells the director because they're in like creative world, and like the producers like in like I gotta make sure that this can get paid for is she's that person that like can tell me something directly and I'll be like, okay, like, okay, yeah, you're right. So we really had that dynamic. And again, she gave me so many nuggets about how to pursue the rest of my career and my life and my goals. I think we really just connected right away. We're both New Yorkers and our families are New Yorkers. So yeah, she's extraordinary. I don't have enough great things to say about her or Garrett. I just actually just miss hanging out with them more because they're back and forth between New York and LA. So every time they're out here, we do our best to get together. Because yeah, I just she's a lover and an actor, or a lover and a fighter for actors. She's actually on the SAG board, and so because of that, she is in the front lines of a lot of the stuff that's going on. And I admire her so much for who she is and how much she's given to so many productions over the years.
That's awesome, man. Look, we hit the hour mark. I assumed we would go off track. This was a great conversation. I feel like I got to have you back on.
Yeah,
Um,
man,
I,
absolutely,
I'll,
dude.
I'll tell you this. So, I don't know if I'm going to do it at episode 150 or episode 200, but so episode 100, I had a crew of 6 or 7 people, and we were just laughing and drinking the whole time, and it was the most fun I've had. So maybe I'll try to get you on one of my like
Count me
group.
in, man.
It's so hard corralling like 7 or 8 other people.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it's a lot of fun. So maybe I'll try to get you back on and we'll do that.
Cool.
Before we leave though, I want to make sure plug yourself. If you want to talk about if you got any projects going on that are going to release soon, or I know you got your movie that just came out in January. Talk a little bit about that stuff before we let you go today.
Yeah, man. Support indie films is what I can say. Indie films don't have the big budget dollars behind them. So, if there's a theater near you, go see it. I will be posting that on my social media. I really can only do one social media. So find me on Instagram at Matt Drago, MattDrago. From there, you'll have my link tree. It's got my actor website, mattdrago.com. It's also got my production website, dragonhunterproductions.com. You've also got my IMDb. That's got my past and future projects. And again, I share stuff from my, personal and my career because they're one and the same. So give me a follow at Matt Drago on Instagram, and I'll keep you posted with all of the updates when somewhere in Montana comes to streaming and VOD. But if it is in a theater near you, I gotta stress this. Go to the theater. This is a talk piece movie. We've had people from the left, the right, go see this thing. They both say the same thing. It meant something to them. It's a big story. It's one of those stories that hopefully can be made over and over again. That way we can come together more as a country. These are the types of stories that I've always dreamed of being a part of. So, Rob, thank you so much for having me on your show today. This has been a blast, man. And we'll do it. We'll do it again for either episode 150 or 200.
Awesome, man. Look, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. Keep fighting the good fight. I know it's not easy. I'm happy that you're not displaced and you guys were able to, go back home and, things are settling down for you. The rain, I'm sure is big. It's snowing here constantly. So, I'd rather deal with the rain than snow. I hate snow so much. But my podcast is Drink, and you're from the Northeast, so I'm sure you remember that. But, my podcast is Drink Clock Pod on all socials. Drink Clock Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. We should have this episode up tomorrow. I know actors aren't the biggest fans of AI, but I will say it does help me from a production standpoint.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it'll definitely, it helped speed along the process there for me.
I love the tools of AI. Yeah, I mean, my wife uses Descript and stuff like that. Like it's good to use as a tool. You just don't want it to tell your stories. That's the thing. You don't want to. You don't want. Yeah.
I don't want to go on a tangent here. I don't think it's. I don't know, right? Because we're human, but I really don't think it's ever gonna take our stories, because I've seen the songs it creates. I've seen those things it generates. I think it gives a good basis for things, but I don't know if it's ever gonna fully. Maybe I'm gonna watch this in 20 years and be like, "You're a fucking idiot," but I don't know if it'll ever really encompass the human psyche. I don't know. We're crazy, man. All humans are crazy. We just, you only see. You just show bits and pieces of it, So
yeah, films cost money, and business execs like to cut corners, and I do hope that you're right. I mean, the reality is, if we are looking back on this episode that we're doing today 20 years ago, I don't want the future generation to be like, hey, mom, dad, there's this really weird film that's out right now. It's got human beings in it, and I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibilities. I really don't, and so. I always say, like, support human stories. They matter. Human stories matter. They're a way to connect us, and we need them more now than ever, for sure.
I agree, man. Well, look, you have a awesome night, and hopefully have another drink on me over there.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the flame. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to